Hi everyone and welcome along. Now the gardens are bursting with life. So Ant's just getting set up in the background. The garden is bursting with life because we're in August. There are flowers everywhere, and of course the flowers are just because they're so abundant and they're sort of packed in so tightly. You find them facing off in all sorts of different angles, and to give your paintings a real sense of organic wildness, you want to capture those different angles. So today we're just going to do a really simple masterclass in how you achieve flowers on different angles. So grab your paints and let's get started. I thought it might be nice to do sunflowers as our flower topic for this little exercise. So let's have a think. A sunflower is great because it very much sort of angles its head very clearly around, and it has a long tall stem with just leaves quite evenly spaced out, and a big dinner plate of a head. So let's start in the middle then. So whenever I'm drawing a flower, I have the stem, nice line, and I have a central circle that depicts the open face of that flower and gives me a place to anchor all my petals. Now, when I'm doing a flower on an angle, then my stem might start off straight, but then might need to tilt itself. It's just like with a sunflower, and instead of seeing a full circle for an open face flower, we're going to see more of an oval shape that just sort of dissects that stem at that central point. So we're thinking about that central point. And then let's have one facing this way. If we see it really to the side, we might not see much of that circle at all. The oval has gone really, really squashed, and we see it like that. And then, of course, there'll be times where we don't see the front of the flower at all, we see the back of it. However, the good news about that is that it's pretty much the same process of drawing, but we're going to see the back of the flower instead of the front. So I'm going to just do one more. Imagine it just facing fully upwards towards the sun, because it is a sunflower. But the line of the stem, it's always helpful to just extend that line of the stem a bit further so that you can just be reminded of which way your flower is facing. Let's begin with the central one. I think it's always going to be easiest to start with our central one first. And I'll just take a little bit of burnt sienna and moon glow that I've got there for the centre of the flower, and I've got some nice cadmium yellow, classic golden yellow, and we might just need a little bit of cadmium orange too. So nice and sort of simple. Let's go with a size 2 brush, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint in petals around the edge of this flower and imagine an invisible line anchoring each petal into the central dot there. See, I do a little noise of, I imagine, a central line. Da, 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 da. There we go. So this is also just a handy reminder of how to paint really nice, straightforward flowers. And the other key thing here is we are aiming to have our petals relatively evenly lengthed all the way around. Now, just for fun, you could actually, no, we'll carry on with our petals. We're studying here. It's not all about fun. Well, of course it is, but fun in the learning. And Ant's rolling his eyes right now as I turn into a really lame person. Okay, now for the side-on flower. If I take the widest part of the oval And I place in 2 petals that are essentially the same as those there. As we come round to the front, we are going to find that the petals get a little bit shorter because we're viewing them in that slightly warped from the front angle. And that's how we do this, but the side ones remain. Now the other thing is we'll start to see them get a little bit more squashed together from the side because there's not quite so much room. Okay, so you can see that helps us create the sense of flowers from the side. So we'll just repeat that one here because it's essentially the same idea. But also remember that the petals, however short or long, are always angling and anchoring in to that central point. And when it comes to really, really on the side, we still look for the widest point of the circle, but then the tilt is going to be really quite extreme. We might not see much at all across the back. And the other thing to consider is, do your flowers' petals flop open, or do they sort of go right down like a sort of echinacea flower, or do they stay quite angled upwards towards the sun? Well, the sunflower is a fairly sort of horizontal, but maybe with a tiny tilt backwards. So we're going to still see quite a lot of the central part of the flower. I added in a little bit of orange just for fun to the petals, but now we're going to look at the centres because these play a part as well in the angling of a flower. Now with the sunflower central one, I'm just going to use that handy circle I painted to create the sort of central dome. Sunflowers have a almost like a donut, a ring donut middle, which then sinks down in. And I'm doing this really nice and simply today, just allowing that moon glow to just bleed into the orange there, the brown. Now, as straightforward as the petals were, the central circle is round and fairly even. What I do like to do is just add a little bit of shadow on the underside of it to give it a feeling of slight sort of 3D effect. When we come over to our side flower though, what we're going to do is, yes, we will paint a sort of domed top to the flower, but sort of from about midway in, these petals, we're going to see them more than we're going to see the inside of the dome. So therefore I paint around them and then create the oval middle to just replicate what's going on there. I'm going to put my moon glow in. And you can see then how we get the clear sense that the flower is facing off that way and these petals are in front. Whereas with this one, the petals are all kind of in behind the flower. With this one here on the side, we're going to have an even more extreme version of that, so we'll do this. But remember I said there was a sort of ring donut effect? Well, there I've done the sort of divot into the middle there. And then I will just fill that in. Now that's quite wet, so I'm just going to let that dry for a minute, and then we can add in the moon glow. I did this one as well because they're basically the same. So we'll get some moon glow, and we'll just do a little bit in the middle there and a little around the edges. However, and I'm sure I can hear you asking this question through the wires, surely it's not a complete dip because it's all around. So what we do, you're absolutely right, is we just place in just a little bit in the lighter colour, in that brown, and there you get your nice little divot and the effect. And if you want, you can add in a bit more of a low light, a bit more concentrated. A few more dappled seedy bits. And then the last one, it's more about the greenery, the stem. So let's get some green colours woken up in the palette. We've got green gold and sap green next to it, and I've got deep sap green up there as well. So as I said, the stem plays a part as well. So for the open-faced flower, it's fairly straightforward. We can add in a leaf or two. They grow at parallel points, and then you get a lovely sort of broad and pointed leaf, which I enjoy, just squashing the brush down at the top of it and going off to a point. If you want, then, because you know it's a painting tutorial as well as just a little masterclass, you could add in some green or some deep sap green. That's quite fun. Okay, so we don't see much going on there. Now the stem is kind of covered by a petal here, so again we don't see a huge amount, but what we know is that angle has happened there. So I might just kind of creep up around the petal there and just get it in. Put those leaves in a bit, but over here we do see the angled stem, and we might start to see a little spreading of the thickening of the stem in behind, because you need quite a broad, thick neck to handle the weight of these large sunflowers. For this one here, we're going to see all of the back of the flower. So the green comes right up and sort of encompasses the petals, and then we see it from the side here as well. But what we want to create is this green thick neck angling out in front. So what I'm going to do is first I'm just going to place in a bit of sap green where the sepals essentially are clinging on to the petals, like that. And then we're going to just let that dry whilst we wait, and then we can place in the finishing touches. So to finish off, I'm going to take some Sap Green and I'm going to paint in a sort of Y shape there. Then I'm going to just blend it in, maybe make it a bit broader. And then you get this wonderful thick neck, angled. And whilst I was waiting for things to dry, I added in a few extra little leaf lines and a little bit of yellow ochre streaks on some of the petals there to again just help with that low light, to give the petals a bit more depth, to just help you again create this sense of the light coming down and shadows, which just also help in terms of angling your flowers. And I think a little bit of deep sap green on the underside of here is just helpful for the texture there. And there is a little masterclass in angling flowers, but also just a few little tips on painting some simple sunflowers. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. It really helps the channel reach as many people as possible, and we'll see you again next time. Bye!